I am Wade. I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with anxiety and depression. Hey, I told you Wade was here tonight. Oh, okay. I know you don't, Lisa. Um, so, tonight is the inventory lesson. One of the inventory lessons, because I think there's a couple, something like that. But I'm going to give you a brief overview of the inventory tonight. Just to start off, just to remind you of where we're at in the Celebrate Recovery curriculum, if you will. We are at Principle 4, which is openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. Happy are the pure in heart, Matthew 5:8. And step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Lamentations 3:40 says, let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Inventory is a necessary, I almost said a necessary evil, because it's so dreaded by some people sometimes, but it is one of the most beneficial things I have ever done in my Christian walk. Paul was writing to the church at Ephesus. I want to share this verse with you. It's Ephesians 4:31 and 32. Paul was writing to the church and he said, get rid of all bitterness, rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Then he says, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ God forgave you. Now, he gives you a list of get rid ofs, and then he follows it up with a list of do this instead. It sounds real easy. It sounds real easy. I mean, I can remember, and I still do get caught, because I certainly don't want to act like I have arrived or I've got it all right, but I still get caught up in bitterness and rage and anger and brawling and slander. If we're not careful, we can all get caught up in that. And then when I think back over my life and the things that have happened in my life and things that I've been disappointed, that I've been hurt, that I've struggled through, I can think of these things and I think it just will start the bitterness and rage all over again if I'm not careful, because I can get caught up in that. But the be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other. The easiest thing I have found in my walk with Christ to help me to get from the first list and get to the second list is the inventory. The inventory is the bridge right there that can help us to cross over from the bitterness and rage and get to the be compassionate, forgiving each other. Just one example. You're probably going to hear a lot of my inventory tonight, because that's the way I teach. And I end up saying, and then later I'm like, I don't know if I should have even brought that part up. But listen, right here in this room at CR, God gave me the opportunity to cross over that bridge from hate and bitterness to compassion and being kind. And look, that's about as far as I took it that night. Because a person that I looked up to in my life that hurt me probably worse than, I don't know, it ranks up there. It was one of the first things I inventoried. Showed up here one night. And my first thoughts wasn't compassion and friendliness. But I prayed, and I walked over to him, and I spoke to him, and I was friendly to him. And it was just like the most huge burden lifted. Now, I didn't do that on my own because God basically kicked me in the tail and said, go be compassionate and friendly. I'll be honest, I didn't want to do it. But he kept saying, you better. That's what you say we're supposed to do, right? That's what you say you're supposed to do. Go do it. Right here in this place, go do it. And I got the opportunity to do that. I don't think before that inventory, I don't know that I would have. I would have just probably stayed on this side of the room because he was sitting right back there. And I'd have probably just stayed on this side and just been glad that I made it through the night. Y'all, the inventory can do miraculous things. In your bulletin, you have a little copy of the form. It's a little small version, and I think it only shows you the negative on there, if I'm not mistaken. We have a large inventory sheet, if you've never seen one of these. Now, a lot of times, I'm jumping a little bit here. A lot of times we talk about inventory, and you'll hear people in the same breath talk about a step study. And that is where I did my first inventory. But that is not where you have to wait to do your first inventory, because it's really not even fair to stand here and talk about how great a step study is, how great an inventory is, and then say, but you got to be in a step study, but the step studies that are going right now are closed. You can no longer join them, and we're not really sure when we're going to have another step study. So we're going to talk to you about inventory, but you really can't do it. You can. And I'm going to try to explain to you how you can and what the reasoning is for it. Step study is a great place, but the inventory does not have to wait on a step study. I want to keep saying that. But there's a lot of different points that I'm going to talk to you about in this tonight. I was talking to somebody, just carrying on a text conversation today, and I started thinking about an illustration. It just kind of came out, and then I thought, that's kind of just like a step study. You know, on my back porch, so we built a new house last year, and we finally got moved in. It was a long process, and I questioned whether we were doing the right thing because of the process that it was, but anyway, it turned out great. And so, but one thing is, the piece of land, I think I've said this before. I'm having deja vu. But anyway, so the piece of land we picked wasn't near as level as my untrained eye thought it was, with all the trees and the brush and there. When they cleared that out, man, that thing was a mountain. So they had to cut into the top of this mountain to create a pad to build our house on. So what happened was, if you picture, our backyard is kind of like this, like the mountain just keeps going, and our house sits kind of down probably, 20 feet from the top. So they had to build a retaining wall to hold back that dirt, that was a fight, but that's another story. And so we got the retaining wall, and then they put pine straw all over the dirt from the top down to the retaining wall, which is probably 15, 20 feet, Eddie? You saw it. And so there's all this pine straw. So for a year, I sit on my back porch and I look up there, and Colleen, she wanted to plant bushes. So again, another whole story, but we put bushes up there. She fell. I laughed. It was a big argument. But anyway, so I sit on the back porch and I look at this, and it looks very nice. I don't climb that hill because I don't want her to laugh at me falling. All right, so I try not to climb that hill. Well, unfortunately, I had to go up there the other day, and I started realizing when I'm standing on top of it, there's little 2-inch pine trees growing everywhere that I can't see from my back porch. So I've got to get out there and do something with those. And I actually took a picture, but we didn't have time. It's just been crazy. It's been a crazy week, okay? But anyway, so if you think of your life that way, these little pine trees are like the different things that have happened in your life. There's things there. There's things that, now those pine trees aren't racing to grow big. I can't see them sitting on my porch. What they're doing is they're growing roots. And if we allow those things to just sit and we ignore them, like I've been doing for probably 6 months, I guess now. I don't know how long they've been there, but I didn't even know they were there. And then when I realized they were there, I kind of ignored them for a few weeks, and then there was more, and then I realized I got to do something. If we don't start plucking those things and taking care of those things, they will grow roots deep down into our lives and into our hearts and into our soul that will create a lot harder problem to deal with later than if you pluck it right off the bat. Now look at that as far as I laughed at my wife. Well, I didn't let that linger long. You know, I'm not laughing at you, but it was kind of, and then of course I didn't jump up to go help her either, which was the second problem. But I was like, I couldn't get to you no way. So, but I went and I did apologize to her. I said, you know, I'm sorry I laughed. And we kind of, after that flash of anger, it was all funny and we laughed about it. But when we offend, when we do something wrong, when the Holy Spirit taps us on the shoulder and says, hey, you need to take care of this, that's the time to take care of it. And if it's something that is really more than going, that is really an inventory. That's inventorying. It's just really that simple. We have this form to help us walk through it and everything, but it's really as simple as when the Lord brings something to you that you know you've offended, or there's something that has happened to you in your life that you cannot get past, then you go and you take care of it immediately. And that way it doesn't have the opportunity to grow the roots to get down deeper, because I just heard something the other day. I don't even know where it just popped in my mind. Roots. Septic system. You ever had roots in your septic system? I mean, they can destroy the whole thing. I just heard somebody talking about that. Had they taken care of the tree before the roots grew into their system, they wouldn't have had poop in their tub. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happens to us. The crap, if you will, spills out because we don't deal with it when we need to. Excuse my language. All right, so let's look at the inventory worksheet. The first, everybody got that thing? Everybody with me? A lot of you, you're like, oh man, this again, I've seen this so many times. But there are people who have seen it for the first time, so bear with me. Please. All right, so the person and or event. The question there is, who and or what is the object of my resentment or fear? It can be names of people. It can be institutions, the church, a job, a workplace, just the whole environment at a workplace. It can be an issue of some type. For me, right there, one of the things in that was I had my dad in there because he had an anger problem, growing up, and it just kind of spilled on whoever was in front of him at the time. You know, it was just, if you happened to be in the line of fire, then you caught it. And that, for one thing, it taught me that that's the way, I've said this before, but it taught me that that's the way men deal with things. So I ended up with an anger problem because men get mad. Men don't cry, men don't get hurt feelings, men get mad. A former pastor was on that inventory spot. Some other family members, a job situation, some people I knew from school, all the way back to school. On that first one, I mean, I did it for the first time, so I loaded it up. The next column over is the cause. What specific action and or event hurt me? The events or the incidents. My dad, I could pick out, and I did pick out a few different incidences of his anger and things that were said and just the brief synopsis of the situation as I remembered it. All right? So basically what you're doing right there is you're just briefly, very briefly describing what the incident, the situation, what that person did, what have you. Now remember, in some of these situations, we're probably the person that is in that spot of the person or the event, and we have done things that we shouldn't do. And so we're not just always talking about what everybody did to us, but sometimes it's what we have done also and how we have failed in these situations, and the cause is what we did, what we know we did, what the Lord showed us we did, and what do we need to do about it. The effect. What effect did the action have on my life? Just like I said a while ago, I grew up believing that men got angry about everything. That's the only emotion men were allowed. We weren't allowed to cry. If you cried, you got a spanking. If your feelings were hurt, well, no one said life was fair. It just ain't fair. Suck it up and get over it. But if I got mad, that was kind of the manly thing. That's what I grew up. So every emotion I feel, my first impulse is to turn it to anger. You hurt my feelings, I'm mad at you. You embarrass me, I'm mad at you. So going across the line there, that's how I would have filled that in, just talking about my dad. What damage did it do to my basic social, security, and our sexual instincts? Were there losses, broken relationships, financial situations, fear of intimacy, distrust? There's another situation that I inventoried, and that distrust was exactly what it caused. I still have a problem trusting people. I struggle to trust. My first inclination is to not trust. And I have to pray, and I have to think, and I have to weigh it all out, and I have to examine, and I have to pray some more. And there's very few people that I'm just comfortable trusting. I don't even know if I have a blind trust anymore. But that situation left me with distrust in people in general. And then my part. What is my part? We all have a part. We all have a part. For what part of the resentment am I responsible for? Did I make bad choices? Did I start turning to something that I got addicted to? Do I have compulsive behaviors of some kind? Do I always push it back and just let it keep growing deeper roots while I try to ignore it? What are those things? Another question you ask in that is, who are the people I've hurt through this? Because the old saying, hurt people hurt people. You know, that's one thing I did realize about my dad. My dad had an anger problem, but he grew up in a rough situation. And he never did an inventory. He didn't have Celebrate Recovery. He didn't have anybody explaining to him how to deal with these things. And he passed away still, well, I say he passed away still with an anger problem. He mellowed out a lot. It's amazing just how mellow he did get in his final years. But he never had anybody to help him deal with these things the way that we have. And then, of course, who are the people I've hurt? So how have I hurt them? Writing that out. Don't shortcut it. Don't make it sound better than it is. Be truthful with these things and face them. Now listen, in that spot, in my part spot, there is the opportunity for victims of abuse especially to put into that spot, I had no part in that. It was not my fault. I am not guilty. I did not have a part in this abuse. It was done to me. Matter of fact, Celebrate Recovery rewrote, and it says, for victims of abuse, I'm going to read it to you. It says, we made a searching and fearless inventory of ourselves, realizing all wrongs can be forgiven, renouncing the lie that the abuse was our fault. There's horrible things that are done, and unfortunately, I hear about a lot of those things all the time. And you watch the news one night a week, and you'll hear plenty of people being abused that it was not their fault. But one of the things I hear so often is people believing the lie that somehow they caused or deserved what was done to them. That is a lie. If you're a victim of abuse, you are innocent. Okay? Claim that in Christ and accept that. So, I've given you a kind of an example of how I did my inventory. I'm gonna skip ahead, but we'll come back to it. There is a part that says, "Keep it balanced." Keep it balanced. If you get so caught up in looking at the negative of everything, it's very easy for me to sit and think, man, I had a horrible childhood. In reality, I had a pretty good childhood. I had some bad moments. But the older I get and the more I look back and the more I look at, it seems like I only remember my dad being angry all the time. It seems like he was always fussing about something. But always is not true. So to show you, on the back of this form is the positive. Y'all don't have this, but there are some over in the info tower, and I'd like to keep them there for a few weeks so people can get them if you want them. And you can make copies. All you want of this, it's not, nobody's going to knock on your door. You broke the copyright. So make all the copies, because in all honesty, I had to have a bunch of copies when I did mine. And but there's the positive. There's the positive. The person and or event. They say that for every negative, try to write a positive. Now, sometimes you just absolutely cannot pull out a positive out of a negative situation. You just can't. But for me, for my dad, I started thinking, and there were positives. There were some positives. Listen, I grew up, of course, here in Atlanta. Ted Turner just passed away. TBS, the Atlanta Braves. It's like, man, all these folks, Bobby Cox, Bob Horner just passed away, all these Braves from my childhood. But it kind of come back around because my dad took me to my first Braves game. I can still remember it. I can still remember it plainly. I'm there. I can tell you the score. The Braves lost to the Reds 10-2. Yeah. Look, they stunk. All 2,000 of us agreed that night. They stunk, but we all sat there. Listen, they were so bad when I first went that we walked up to the gate that night and bought tickets, and I sat about 20, 25 rows behind home plate. You can't even buy those tickets now. Those are for highfalutin folks. You know what I'm saying? Those are the seats you see empty because they get to go so much they just decide not to even show up. So, you see those good seats empty half the time. But we sat right there. He took me to that. That was a good night. He didn't get angry that night. I got to yell and I could hear my voice echo all through Atlanta Fulton County Stadium because it was so empty. I yelled for every Brave just like we had a chance of coming back. I was about, 10 years old, if I remember right. He took me to my first Georgia game as a boy. Went to see the Georgia Bulldogs. The year they won the national championship in 1980. Herschel Walker. They beat TCU 34-0. Herschel Walker's jersey got ripped off right in front of me, and he done a spin and kept running for a touchdown. I remember it. That was a good memory. Good memory. So my dad was an angry man most of the time. Seems like most of the time. But we had good times together too. So that's an example of a positive. But listen, if I could not bring out a positive out of my dad, then bring out a positive of something. What specific action occurred to encourage me? Who, the person and event, who or what has brought me joy? The specific action. Okay, it might not have been my dad in that situation. If I couldn't come up with those stories, I could list someone else. There's somebody in your life that has brought you joy. Is it your child? Is it your grandchild? Is it your cousin? I don't know. There's something there. So, things you can do as you're going through your inventory to help you. Like I said, keep it balanced. I skipped ahead a little bit. The second one is memorize this verse. And this will help you to understand and realize why we have to do this. Memorize Isaiah 1:18. It says, "Come now, let us settle the matter, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red as crimson, they shall be like wool." The last thing that you really, really need to do before you ever start thinking about doing any kind of inventory is you need to have your support team, your sponsor, and your accountability partner. So this week, I'm out of time. It's always, I hate the clock. It don't go this fast when I'm at work. So this week, I just want to give you this. The reason why your sponsor and accountability partner is so important. My mom had a stroke Saturday. All right? And so Saturday, we had all kinds of plans for Memorial Day weekend. Well, I spent half a Saturday, or at least, in the emergency room with my mom, and just wondering. But she couldn't use her left arm, left leg. Come to find out, she had 2 brain bleeds. But it ended up it wasn't a massive stroke, thank the Lord. So it was a stroke. She does have some control issues. So we got her into a rehab. Yes, thank you. We got her into rehab. And so that's another, again, I got a lot of other stories. That's another whole story. She don't like it there. But she's got to stay there. But this is why your accountability partner and your sponsor is important. My sponsor checked on me over and over to make sure, I'm doing okay. One of my accountability partners checked on me, but he asked a specific question because he was in a step study with me, and he knows my mom is the person or event also. I inventoried her. And he asked me, because at the time we didn't know how serious this was. We didn't know what this week would hold. My mom is 85 years old. Okay? So there were fears that she, all the bad stuff runs through your mind. So he asked me, first he asked me how I was doing, and then he said this question, and then I'm like, uh-oh, here it comes. He said, I'm going to ask you the hard question. How's your relationship with your mom? And I was able to tell him that we're good. Everything's not perfect. She didn't become a different person because I wrote things on a piece of paper. But it changed my perspective of things. And because I have inventoried her, now I'm not going to say I don't get aggravated at times with my mom. I do. I'm not going to say that she still don't hurt my feelings sometimes. She does. I'm a grown man, and this little 85-year-old woman can whoop me down in just a moment. But because I inventoried this, I have been able to deal with her this week and see her in a different light and show compassion to her and be nice to her. And even, So it's really teaching this lesson this week. I'm in the middle of chaos where this lesson has helped me. It can help you. Talk to your group leaders about inventory if you're interested in doing one. If you're interested, or if you feel like there's something that's bothering you, talk to your group leader. If you do not have a sponsor or accountability partner, they can advise you a little bit, maybe help you a little bit. But listen, this is where recovery starts right here. This is where the real recovery starts. This is where the healing begins, is with your inventory. So that's a little oversight of it. I'm a minute late. I'm sorry. Thank y'all for letting me share.